Welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to uncover the hidden mechanisms that literally control the everyday materials all around us. We often look at a piece of metal and think of it as something fixed, right? Something permanent and totally unchanging. But today, we're going to dive into how, with just a little bit of thermal engineering, we can completely rewrite a material's physical destiny. So think about this. How can the exact same piece of metal be super easy to cut, but also completely impossible to scratch? It sounds like a riddle, but this is the one material, many identities hook of metallurgy. The physical properties of steel are completely malleable, using absolutely nothing but heat and time. Depending entirely on how it's been heated and cooled, the exact same base alloy can be soft enough to machine into really intricate shapes, or so incredibly hard that it just brushes off heavy wear and tear. It's practically magic, but as we'll see, it is actually highly precise science. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. The magic of heat. 2. Annealing. 3. Quenching. 4. Tempering. And 5. Some specialized heat treatments. Let's jump into part 1, the magic of heat and transforming microstructure. Okay, so heat treatment is defined as the controlled process of heating and cooling a metal to deliberately change its internal microstructure and resulting mechanical properties. And the absolute key word here is deliberately. We aren't just getting metal hot to melt it down, we are carefully altering the internal architecture of the steel to engineer its final characteristics. By controlling the temperature and the cooling rate, we're basically acting as architects at the microscopic level. Moving on to part 2, annealing, making metal soft and workable. The process of annealing is one of the most fundamental heat treatments in all of manufacturing, and it goes down in 3 distinct steps. First, you heat the metal to a specific, really high temperature. Second, you hold it at that temperature to let the heat thoroughly penetrate and equalize. And third, and honestly, this is the absolute crucial part, you cool it very, very slowly. That slow cooling is the secret ingredient here. It allows the metal's internal structure to form in a relatively soft, ductile, and low-stress condition. It's essentially a spa day for the metal, relaxing it so it's perfectly primed for whatever machining or forming operations come next. Now, engineers have adapted this simple concept into 3 specialized techniques. First up, full annealing. This heats the steel all the way up into the austenite phase range, and by cooling it slowly, it produces a really soft, coarse structure called pearlite. Next is process annealing. This one uses a slightly lower temperature, just enough to relieve internal stress and restore ductility without completely overriding the steel's existing microstructure. Finally, stress relief annealing targets and reduces those internal residual stresses that tend to build up after heavy manufacturing operations. Things like heavy welding, machining, or cold-forming structural beams. In all 3 cases, the slow cooling ensures you get a low-stress, workable metal ready for the real world. All right, let's flip the script. Part 3, quenching, hard and brittle. When we compare these 2 directly, the contrast is night and day. Annealing uses slow cooling from the austenite phase to give atoms the time they need to diffuse and form that soft pearlite we just talked about. Quenching, on the other hand, involves a massive thermal shock. By rapidly cooling the steel from that exact same high-temperature austenite phase, we completely prevent that slow diffusion process. So instead of soft pearlite, this extreme temperature drop forces the creation of a fundamentally different, extremely hard phase called martensite. To truly wrap our heads around martensite, we have to zoom way, way in and look at the atomic drama unfolding inside the steel. When steel is hot and in that austenite phase, carbon atoms are happily dissolved within the crystal structure, just floating around. But during a rapid quench, the surrounding iron structure transforms and contracts so incredibly fast that the doors essentially slam shut. The carbon atoms get violently trapped in place. And this trapped carbon severely distorts the iron crystal lattice. It creates just an enormous amount of internal stress, and that microscopic physical tension translates directly into martensite's characteristic unyielding hardness. Engineers have to carefully choose exactly how they execute this rapid cooling, which brilliantly illustrates some real-world manufacturing trade-offs. Using water gives you an extremely rapid cooling rate. That gets you maximum hardness, but the thermal shock is so violent there's a really significant risk of the part cracking or warping. So to mitigate that, you might choose oil instead. Oil boils differently and cools the steel a bit more slowly than water. It reduces the cracking risk while still achieving substantial hardening, which makes it super common for tool steel applications. Finally, there are specialized polymer solutions that offer tailored, variable cooling rates depending on the specific alloy you're using and the geometry of the part. But here is the massive engineering dilemma we run into. Quenched steel in its raw, as quenched state is typically far too brittle for practical use. We achieved our goal of making it incredibly hard, sure, but in doing so, we've made it act almost like glass. Literally. If you were to strike a fully quenched, untempered piece of steel with a hammer, there is a very good chance it would just shatter into a dozen pieces. It's incredibly hard, but practically useless for anything that takes an impact.
Which brings us perfectly to part 4, tempering, finding the perfect balance.
Because quenching leaves steel too brittle. Tempering almost always follows right after. The tempering process is straightforward, but it's absolutely critical. First, you take that highly stressed, quenched martensite and reheat it to a moderate temperature. And actually, importantly here, this is well below the high-temperature austenite range. Second, you let it cool down again, typically just sitting out in still air. This controlled reheating acts as a microscopic pressure release valve. It allows some of that trapped internal atomic stress to relax, and it lets some of the trapped carbon precipitate right out of that distorted lattice. By doing this, we significantly improve the material's toughness, though it does come at the cost of a slight reduction in absolute hardness. Think of the tempering temperature exactly like a dial on a control panel. If a metallurgist selects a lower tempering temperature, the final product remains harder, making it highly wear-resistant, but it's a little bit less tough. If they turn the dial up, the material becomes much tougher and able to resist cracking from impacts, but it ends up somewhat softer. Metallurgists carefully adjust this dial based on exactly what the final tool or part needs to do out in the real world.
Finally, let's wrap up with part 5, specialized heat treatments.
Industry relies on a few really clever variations of these core techniques. First is normalizing. This involves heating the steel into the austenite range and then cooling it in still air. It's a bit faster than the ultra-slow cooling of annealing, and it produces a uniform, moderately refined microstructure. This is often used to relieve stresses after a part is cast or forged. Then we have case hardening techniques, like carburizing and nitriding. These are brilliant. They selectively harden only the very outer surface of a part while leaving the core softer and tougher. Actually, scratch that. Think of it more like a candy-coated chocolate shell. You get a hard, wear-resistant exterior over a tough, crack-resistant center. That is absolutely ideal for components like heavy-duty gears. And to do all of this consistently across massive production runs, modern manufacturing relies on digital furnaces, which give us precise, repeatable temperature monitoring and control. And that precise control is absolutely crucial, because the stakes in manufacturing are incredibly high. If a heat treatment strays even slightly from the exact required temperatures or cooling rates, it introduces serious defects. We're talking cracking, warping, or unwanted soft spots where a tool will just prematurely fail. There is literally no margin for error. But when it's done correctly, the results are just extraordinary. Heat treatment allows engineers to select a single base alloy composition and then tailor its final properties precisely to a specific application's requirements. One material, infinite possibilities. By simply manipulating the application and removal of heat, we dictate exactly how a metal will behave in the real world. Which brings us to a fascinating conclusion and a really big question for next time. We know that carbon atoms getting trapped causes immense stress and hardness. But what exactly do those crystal structures look like? What atomic-level structures and defects actually determine a material's fundamental properties before we ever even apply heat? Well, we are going to zoom in even closer on the atomic level in our next explainer. You definitely won't want to miss it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you next time.